Hi all, if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. If you are new, welcome. My name is Amira and my channel is all about trying new makeup, talking about new makeup, but also finding new and exciting ways to be inspired by the makeup you already own. If that sounds good to you, I hope you consider subscribing, and if you enjoyed today's video, hitting the like button. Today guys, this video has been a long time coming. I originally wanted to do this, I think the first year that I started my channel. I was like, I really want to do it, and then someone mentioned it in a video, in the comments of a video recently, and I was like, yes, I'm gonna do it, and I've been working on it and like making mental notes, and she was like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it. Some of these brushes are dirty because I've been using them, and I was almost not gonna film this one. I was like, no, I have to wash them so they'll be clean. But I'm like, my brushes are almost always never 100% clean because I wear makeup and I'm filming videos. So you guys are we're all friends here. You guys know the deal. So yes, some of the brushes you will see in this video are gonna be dirty. So sorry, but not sorry. But I'm still very excited to do this. So this is I don't want to call it my ultimate brush guide, but I kind of do. But this is sort of my brush collection and my tips and tricks on how I use brushes, from foundation to concealer to eyeshadow to blush to highlighter, the whole shebang. We're going to talk about synthetic brushes. We're going to talk about natural hair brushes. We're going to talk about high-end Fude brushes. We're going to talk about cheap synthetic brushes. We're going to talk about it all, guys. Grab a snack, grab a drink. This might be a long one. Let's get into it. All right, and I know that there is buzzing in the background, guys. There's someone doing some summer yard work, and this is my only time that I have to film this, so I hope you will bear with me. I will try to play with the sound a little bit so it's not too distracting, but if you hear something in the background, that's what it is. I apologize. But yes, so I didn't make any notes for this. I was going to do a whole thing. I was going to write it, type it up, and be like, okay. But oftentimes when you do stuff like that, it's just a way to sort of like put off doing something because it's a lot of work. And I didn't want to I was like, I'm just going to do it today. I'm here, I'm sitting here, I'm filming. Let's just get it done. So we're going to start off with foundation brushes, and I'm going to put them into two categories: natural hair brushes and synthetic brushes. And we're going to talk about the shapes of brushes that I like to use. So generally speaking, for me personally, I prefer synthetic brushes for applying foundation, mainly because most natural hair brushes are not really meant to be used with liquid products, and you can sort of ruin over time you can sort of degrade the quality of your natural hair brushes when you're using them with liquid foundations. Having said that, in recent years, a lot of companies have started making these sort of hybrid brushes. Brands that make natural hair brushes have sort of been infusing their brushes with synthetic hair so that you can still get the great application of a natural hair brush, but you don't have to worry about it degrading over time. So let's talk about two brushes that do that. I want to see if these are still available. The Kyoto Fupa brushes there was a couple that were being discontinued. I have the mini Fupa. It looks like this. I got this on Beautylish, and if I have links for these, the ones that are still available, I will definitely link them below for you guys. But this is what it looks like, and it's tiny. You see how tiny she is. It's a baby, and it's called the mini Fupa. And I think this is the 10. There's a 10 and an 11, but I believe this is the 10. Super tiny, but this is a hybrid brush. So this has synthetic hairs and natural hair, and you can use this for liquid foundations. I like to use these for foundations that are a little bit thicker in consistency. I do find that if you use this with something that's a little bit thinner, you might find yourself getting a little bit of streakiness. So that's something to keep in mind. But if you have like something that has like a thicker formula, these are really great for that, because the natural hair really disperses the pigment and really blends it into the skin. Because really for me, the synthetic fibers are really just here to keep the quality of the brush stable while you're applying, using this brush that has natural hair as well. Using those natural bristles to really work the pigment into the skin. So this is what this mini Fupa does for me. I use this for thicker consistency foundations. I also have the Takimori T11, which looks like this, and it's longer, but as you can see, the shape is similar. I will say that this one is denser, so you can kind of see that this is just she a chunky baby. She a chunky baby, and this one's like a slightly less chunky baby. But also the handle's longer, so if you find this to be like annoying. And when I first got this, I was like, I don't know, man, this is like so short. But what I love about it is the short handle, you can just do fast work. You can really get in there and just like, so I don't find myself struggling with this as much as I thought I was going to struggle with it. The Takamori T11 is very nice as well. It's again a hybrid, so it has some synthetic hairs and mixed in with the natural fibers. It is a great blending brush, similar to the Fupa. I will say I find the Fupa to be a little bit better because of that density. This one is a little bit thinner, so I would say you're not going to get as fast an application with this one as you do with this one, but it does a great job. And again, these work more for thicker consistency foundations. I find that if I use them with thinner consistency foundations, they streak a little bit. So these are on the higher end of the spectrum. Obvi, like they're mostly Fude natural hair brushes. So these are going to be on the higher end of the scale. I'm going to try and remember to, like I said, put prices and things in the description box. I don't know if I'll put them on the screen, but I will definitely put them in the description box. So for me, these are kind of like in the $100 range, the $90 to $100 range. They're not cheap, but I do love them. I don't reach for them as much as I do my synthetic brushes though. And so we're going to talk about synthetic brushes next. So synthetic brushes, I have a whole collection of synthetic foundation brushes because, like I said, that is my preferred material for applying foundation. I just find that it's a bit more versatile. You can use it with thicker consistency foundations. You can use it with thinner. You can use it with liquid. So it just makes for a more user-friendly experience for me. That's not to say it's the same across the board with synthetic versus natural hair for other things, but for foundation specifically, I do prefer a synthetic brush. So let's talk about some of my favorite shapes and my favorite brands. So one of my favorite shapes is this shape from Real Techniques, and this is from the Blue Sapphire range, and they don't make this anymore. I don't think you can get this anymore, but this range was so beautiful. All of them were like this blue tone with these beautiful, they're just, I mean, stunning, right? But this is, you know, it's kind of almost got that kabuki brush, but not quite. It's not quite as flat. It's a bit more domed, and I just feel like this really works foundation into the skin. It blends it beautifully. I don't get a lot of streaks, which is why I like this a lot, is that I don't get a lot of streaks when I use this type of brush. I have two in this shape from Real Techniques that I like, and I use this one and that one quite a bit. I then have this brush from BK Beauty, and it is the 101, which is this slanted shape here. Now I got this because I was really curious to see if it was similar to the now defunct brand Marc Jacobs Beauty's the Phase 2. And this is the Phase 2, as you can see, and it has that slant. This I bought on sale during lockdown. They were having, Marc Jacobs, everybody was having a sale then, and I remember I was watching a live with Kelsey Brianna J and Alicia Archer, and they were raving about this brush. And Kelsey had said she just used it to apply her foundation, and I was just like, what brush? And they're like, that brush is amazing, that brush is a classic. And then I remember Kelsey going, I think it's on sale. And I was literally watching the live on TV, and then I went on my phone and I purchased this brush, and they were so right. This brush is amazing. It's amazing. It's slanted, it's dense. It really blends product in well. If you're someone who's looking for something that can kind of do the job quickly, but also if you're looking for, what I like about this is you can apply full coverage foundations with this, but you can also apply really light coverage foundations, and it'll sheer them out almost. Because of the density and the slant, you can really like kind of sheer out foundations with this. The density is beautiful. This is one of my favorite foundation brushes in my collection, and I was really sad when this brand went out of business, because this is the main thing that I was like, but the Phase 2 brush. However, there is a dupe for it, and it is the BK Beauty 101. Now, I will say this brush is beautiful. Brush is beautiful. I'm gonna be tripping over the word brush a lot. I can already tell. This brush is beautiful. it is similar to the face. But as you can see, it's bigger. The bristles are taller, and it has more of a slant, but it's also less dense. Like this one has a bit more density to it, and this is what I like about it. So while I like this brush and I think it is very similar, so if you didn't get your hands on the face too, I think this would be a good option. For me personally, I still prefer my face 2 to this one because of the density of that one, but I feel like the BK one is a nice like option if you don't have that one or you weren't able to get your hands on that one. So, and yes, this is the BK Beauty 101. Another foundation brush that I love is this BK one, and this is the 106. I use this probably even more than I use this one. It is so easy to use, and it works with a thin formula, a thick formula, a serum formula, you name it. This brush is my sort of like go-to all around foundation brush, and the size of it is perfect for my face. Now, everyone's face is different as far as size and what they feel comfortable with. For me, I don't tend to like huge brushes on my face for the most part. So this for me is one that I really love for applying foundation because it's just a perfect size. Look at that. It's perfect. It's perfect. I love it. So this is the 106. Let's talk about my other favorite foundation brush, which is my only like true like kabuki style brush, which is this brush from It Cosmetics for Ulta, and it's the only It Cosmetics for Ulta brush that I own. I don't really find the shapes of those brushes that exciting, but I love this brush, and it is the Airbrush Buffing Foundation Brush number 110. And do you see how flat that is? Just, it's perfect for a buffing foundation brush. This is great. I like to use this with medium to thicker formulations of foundation because it just blends them and buffs them into the skin so beautifully. I really like this. I would say these two, or these three, excuse me, are sort of like my go-tos for foundation. Oh, along with this one, these are like the ones. These are the ones. Now let's talk about concealer brushes. So I am pretty picky about concealer brushes. For a very long time, I applied concealer with my fingers, and I still do that sometimes. Not all the time, but some of the times, like on days when I'm going for a supernatural. When I'm going for a very natural look, I will use my fingers because fingers blend things out. I know a lot of people don't like using their fingers, and I used to use my fingers for everything. Like I used to apply my concealer and my foundation with my fingers, and I do find myself doing that sometimes still on days when I really want a super blended out natural vibe, because applying with your fingers you automatically will be applying less product. Your fingers, the warmth from your fingers warm up the product so that the product sinks into the skin. So there is a lot to be said for that. However, we don't always have time for that, and there are days I don't feel like doing that either. So, you know, so let's talk concealer brushes. So the first concealer brush that I just fell in love with was the Zoeva 145, and it was the Concealer Perfector, and it looks like this. Now, does this shape look familiar to you guys? I'm sure it does, because right after this brush came out, Pat McGrath came out with a brush that's very similar, much more expensive, also synthetic. And these are all synthetic concealer brushes that I'm going to talk about, by the way. And I fell in love. I bought it twice. I then cracked one, broke through, I had to throw it away, but this is the remaining survivor of this shape, and I am obsessed. Since that time, like Pat McGrath came out with it, but other brands have since come out with shapes like this for concealer brushes. I believe Rare Beauty has one. I know Rare Beauty has one because I almost purchased it, but yeah, Rare Beauty has one, and these are just, I mean, can you see how and why this would work? This shape is perfect for applying and blending concealer. You're gonna get a really natural, not heavy application under the eyes with this shape of brush. So this is what I love that for. I think if you can find one, there's one that you've had your eye on that has this shape, just get it. It doesn't matter really on the brand. I really don't think it matters. Just make sure that the bristles, Lord have mercy, the bristles are on the thicker side. As you can see, this is quite a thick one. You don't want one that's loosey-goosey, you know, that's kind of thin. you want one that has that thickness because that is what really helps blend the product into the skin. Then I have the two brushes, and these are dirty, so because I've been using them. But then I have the two brushes that I bought from Sephora, and I've really been loving. So I have the Sephora 5-7, which is shaped like that, and then I have the Sephora 71, which is slanted and shaped like that. This one I prefer for thinner concealers. When I try to use this with thicker concealers, I just get streaky under eyes. So the slanted one from the 71, if you've had your eye on this one, and I'm filming this during the Sephora sale. I don't know if it's going to go up during the Sephora sale. It probably will, but they are offering 30% off all Sephora collection items, including the brushes. So I'm going to talk about these two, and I recommend both, but I recommend them for very, very specific reasons. So this one, the 71, the Pro Concealer 71, very good for thin, sort of serum-like concealers. I would not recommend using this with a thicker consistency. You're gonna get Streak City. This, however, I highly recommend. This is the 57 Pro Concealer for dense, thicker concealers. I also like to use this when I'm just using concealer and I'm not wearing foundation, and I go in and I just apply this where I want coverage. This brush is perfect for it. If you can see, and again, it's dirty, how thick those bristles are, how like dense, and how the top of it is kind of like slightly domed. It's almost akin to what this looks like in that way. And the thing I like about this is how well it blends out product and kind of like shears it out, makes it more skin-like. This does the same thing for concealer. So I say this is good for when you're trying to do like an all-over look with concealer. If you're just like, I'm not wearing foundation, I'm just gonna go in and pop, this is perfect for that. And if you have a thicker consistency concealer, this works really well with that. It will really sort of buff that into the skin and buff it out well, whereas this one will kind of make that a bit streaky. So those are my concealer recommendations as far as brushes go. Next up, let's talk powder. So I have two powder brushes. I don't wear a lot of powder anymore, but I do still wear powder. I've been wearing powder a lot more lately because I have a powder in my makeup capsule for the month of April. And I'm also wearing a lot more powder products in general. I've been trying a lot more powder products, not only for my collection, but newer things that have come in. And so I need to powder a little bit. So I tend to powder now. I used to powder all over, but now I powder just sort of like in this area and maybe a little bit on my nose because it gets a little shiny. So my favorite powder brush is this brush from Kyoto. And this is an expensive brush. This is, I believe it's, let me look it up. I'm trying to remember what type of hair it is because it's stunning. Yeah, so this is from the Kakishibozomi series. And I believe I have the powder brush, which I believe is KSZ04-04. I'm looking on Beautylish now, and they don't have it on the website right now. They just have the cheek brush. But this brush is... I used to listen to people talk about how natural hair brushes for applying powder, like setting powder, was just like the bee's knees, and everyone was sort of like, oh my gosh, it's amazing, it's amazing. This is a goat hair brush. It's a Saikoho goat hair brush, and the tips are dyed to this pretty dusk shade, which is why it's called the Kakishibozomi. It's like a method of dyeing. And I don't know if you can still get this, because I know on the Fude Beauty site some of these brushes were being discontinued, but I do highly recommend the Kyoto brushes in general. I think Kyoto brushes are bee's knees. So this is my natural hair powder brush, and this is what I've been using when I've been powdering my face every day. I love this brush. It disperses powder so beautifully. It picks, because even though natural hair brushes pick up a lot of pigment, the thing that makes them exceptional is the way that they blend the pigment, or they blend the powder product. So this picks up a lot, and then it blends it out beautifully. And what I will do is I will literally pour my powder into the cap. I will swirl this brush around, and everything that's on here I will just apply to my face, and it's enough. I don't need to dip in again. I just strategically apply it, and it looks amazing. So I I love this brush. I think it's stunning. I think the retail price for this was like $100, but I don't know if you can still get it. It's on the pricey side. It's a Fude brush. This is not a budget item. This is a splurge or an investment, that sort of thing. And you don't need to have this brush in order to get perfect powder application. I'm going to talk about my favorite synthetic powder brush. So my favorite synthetic powder brush is this bad boy here from BK Beauty, the 102. This is what I use on top of that one. So right now I'm using this one, but I also use this one and I use them interchangeably. It just depends on my mood. You know, if one's dirty and this one's clean, like this one's I've been using, so this one's dirty. So I probably will either wash this one, probably not, let's be honest, and I'll just start using this one. But I love this brush. It's thinner, as you can see. But the way that the dome shape of it, the way that it picks up powder and the way that it disperses it is very comparable to a natural hair brush. Not exactly the same, but comparable. And the price point is, of course, you know, different. BK Beauty is more, I would put it in the luxury range of synthetic brushes. The quality is beautiful, and it's clear that the vibe is going for that natural hair feel without using natural hair. So I say if you're looking for high quality, higher end synthetic brushes, BK Beauty is the way to go. But yeah, this brush is beautiful. I love it. It's thinner than the Kyoto one, but that actually works out when I'm really trying to go very light with powder. I'm just trying to like lightly dust a specific area or lightly dust all over my face. This is the brush that I reach for. Beautiful, beautiful. So yeah, you don't need this brush. This one's good too. Now let's talk another type of buffing brush, which is, or powder brush, but for buffing. And those are these types of brushes here. So this is the BK 105. And then I also have the Milani powder bronzer brush. And I don't know if there's a number on this one. It isn't. There's no number. So these are the two. So these are considered, for me, these are buffing brushes. These are not powder. These are not bronzer brushes for me. This is what, if you're someone who uses a finishing powder or you use a pressed powder, these are the type of brushes that I suggest reaching for, because what this will do is it will pick up the product and it will literally buff it into the skin. Whereas this, I often find brushes that are like this thick and fluffy, it's harder to pick up a pressed powder with something like that and get it to apply evenly. This, you can really go in and buff that powder into your face, especially if you're using like a finishing powder that has a bit of glow. I highly recommend this type of brush. And you can see how dense, I mean, look how thick that is. She's thick and dense, and it just really just picks up the product. I use this a lot with my Chantecaille finishing powder. I like it with the NYX finishing powder, the high glass one that's so hard to get, like it's discontinued, but you can maybe kind of sort of find that one. I use this brush with that. And this one is just slightly different. Now I have used this for bronzer, tried it with bronzer, and I didn't dislike it, but I have my preferences about bronzer brushes. And for me, because my face is kind of on the smaller side, this is a lot for a bronzer brush. And you can see what I mean. It's thick, and it's not really how I like to apply my bronzer. So I like to use this in the same way that I use this. I use them interchangeably as buffing brushes for finishing powders. Let's talk bronzer brushes. So I have two that I reach for, and they do very different things. First off, let's talk about my powder bronzer brush of choice, and it is the BK Beauty 104. Now I'll show it next to the BK Beauty 102, and you'll see the difference. So do you see how big and fluffy this one is? And this one's fluffy as well, but it's smaller, and it's got a more of a dome. It feels a little more tippy tip, like more of a tip to it, if you can see that. And this is what I use for powder bronzer. I am wearing powder bronzer today. This is what I use to apply it. And yeah, it's a really good, it picks up product well, it blends it and disperses it well. The way I apply my bronzer is I usually just do this, and then I bring it around here and then apply it on my nose. And what I like about this is that it's thin enough that sometimes when I'm wanting to like spot bronze, if that makes sense, like I like to bronze around my nose, but I don't want to just like go at my nose with like a brush full of bronzer, I will dip this in my bronzer and I will dip it. I mean, I will smush it and then I'll just do like that. And it's perfect. This is my go-to. This is probably the only brush I think I use for powder bronzer. I don't have a lot of bronzer brushes because I don't feel like I need a bunch of bronzer brushes, but this one is my go-to powder one. Now let's talk cream bronzers, because you guys know that cream bronzer is my love, and I have my main bronzer brush, and I'll show you what I was using when I first got into bronzer. When I first got into bronzer, I was using cream bronzer. I was using this all over blending brush from Milani. You see how tiny that is? And this was fantastic because if you are someone who uses products that are very pigmented, or you're new to cream bronzer and you're worried that you're gonna overdo it. So like the NARS bronzing cream is incredibly pigmented and it's very easy to overdo it with that if you go in with, you know, the wrong brush or a heavy hand. But using something small like this allows you to really target the cream bronzer or even your contour. I don't know if I'd use this for contour just because of the shape, but when you're looking for something that can really target product in one specific area, if you're worried about it moving around, these types of brushes are perfect for that. So when I was just getting into cream bronzer, this is what I was using, and I would literally just go in and I would just slowly buff the cream in to where I wanted it, and then I would build it up as I saw fit. And it's great for like the nose, it's great for the forehead. It's super tiny, but it gets the job done. So this was my go-to for a very long time for cream bronzer. But then guys, I got into Units. And Units brushes, I believe, is Beautylicious brand of brushes. I can't remember for sure, but I believe it's their brand of brushes. I can't talk. And I bought their set. I bought their face set and their eye set. And I discovered this brush here, which is the Units 303. Look at that shape. Do you see that? And what I love about this one is what makes it better than this one. This one's good. This one's better. It gives this beautiful blown out, blended out effect without having to do a whole lot. So this is my go-to for cream. This used to be my go-to for cream, but this is my new go-to for cream. I still use this brush, and I will talk about later on how I use this brush now. But when I'm wearing cream bronzer, this is what I'm using. All right, now let's talk blush. So blush brushes, I have my three main go-to. I have my Linda Hallberg or LH Cosmetics, and this is the 310. I don't know what the name of it is, but it's the 310. I bought this in a set. She has a set, like an essentials kit that I bought ages ago, and it's what got me into this brush, and it's what got me into her puff, her powder puff. Love that as well. It's amazing, but we're talking about brushes today, so I'm just gonna stick to brushes. But that is what got me into powder puffs, just so you know. This is my go-to blush brush for Pat McGrath blushes because it's synthetic and it picks up just enough product, but the blend on this is amazing. So this is what I use today to apply this blush, which is a powder blush, and I love the way it builds, and then the way that it blends. So you can go in quite lightly with this, get your blush on, and dip, and it will build up onto itself without sort of making your blush look patchy and stuck in places. And when that does happen, I usually know that it's the blush and not this brush, because I've used it with so many different powder blushes that I know that this brush performs. So like I used this recently with my Cover FX Blush Duo in Mulberry, and I talked to you guys about how that looked so patchy on my skin. I knew it was the blush, and I tried it with other brushes just to see, and it was, because I'm like, this doesn't apply blush like that. It's not the brush. It was not. So yes, this is the Linda Hallberg 310. I highly recommend it if you're interested in her brushes, just getting the little set, because you get all of these. It's called the Essentials Kit, and you do get all the essentials. And I will mention another brush from that set that I use a lot. So yes, this is my go-to synthetic brush for blushes from Pat McGrath specifically. My other go-to is this beautiful brush here from Rephr. It is the Rephr 4, and it's this angled brush, and I like to use this for powder blushes as well, but I like to use this for my other blushes that are powder, because this is a, like I said, natural hair brush that picks up quite a lot of product. And with the Pat McGrath, because they're so pigmented, I tend to want something that pulls or doesn't pick up quite as much. With the Linda Hallberg being synthetic, will not pick up a lot of product. Too much product, I'll put it that way. But this is a natural hair brush. You're gonna get product, you know, you're gonna get product. And again, I like the angle because I like that I can control the placement. They have another brush that is actually their blush brush. I don't think this is called the blush brush, but they have one that is sort of like more domed. I don't own that one because that shape doesn't really interest me as far as a natural hair blush brush. I had to think about that for a second, so I didn't flip the words. I like this one because of the fact that the shape is makes it so much easier to control. Very similar to how I like the shape of this, because it makes it easy to control. Because it is natural hair, you're gonna pick up more product. You want more control about where that product goes. My go-to for cream blushes is this old, beat up, Wet n Wild brush that I got at Walgreens for a doll hair. I bought it years ago. I still use it. I wash it and it's brand new. The ferrule, like you can see how old this is. Can you see how this part is like peeling? This brush, this is a Wet n Wild brush. They sell these on their website. I think they've gone up on them. When I got them, you know, inflation. When I bought this years ago, it was $1. Now I think they're like $2 or $3, but still cheap and still worth it. This is such a great brush. It's angled, as you can see. I talk about how I love a good angle for control, but because it's synthetic, I use this for my cream blushes. And because of the same issue that I have with bronzers, or not issue, but the same reason why I choose an angled brush for cream bronzers is the same reason why I like this for cream blushes. Control. You get really good control. And it picks up a good amount of product, it blends it beautifully, and you just have better control about where you place it. So if you're someone who's like, I just need a good cream blush, I can't talk. If you're just looking for a really good cream blush brush that's not expensive, no frills, get this one. I actually think it's cute when it's clean. It's white and this part is like pink. Baby pink. It's super cute. It's dirty now because I've been using it, but this brush has been in my collection from the moment when I first started doing makeup, and I was only buying drugstore because I didn't know what the Sam Hill I was doing. This is the brush that I had, and this is still in my collection because it still is a go-to for me. Now, my friends, let's talk highlighters, and I'm going to start off with one of my favorite highlighter brushes, which is from the Real Techniques Blue Sapphire collection. It's B02. I don't think you can get this particular brush, but Real Techniques is really great at still releasing their same shapes, but just with different like design. So you can probably still get this shape, you know, in another Real Techniques brush collection or brush. They do sell them as sets and they do sell them individually, and you can get them at Ulta. You can get them on their website. Like, Real Techniques is pretty easy to come by. So I think they're still in Ulta. Maybe I should check. Hold one second. Yes, you can still get this at Ulta. I just double checked. So you can, not this specific brush, but you can still get the Real Techniques brushes at Ulta. Did I say Sephora? Ulta. This one is one of my faves, and I love the shape. And as you can see, the shape, it's like pointed at the top, kind of like tipped. But as you can see, it's almost like like the angles are slightly different on either side. So this one's a little bit higher and this one's a little bit lower. And honestly, it just helps with how you place your highlighter. I love this brush for highlighter. It picks up a decent amount. It is a synthetic brush, but it picks up a decent amount of highlighter. But what I like about it is that you can really kind of, if you want it to be a bit more, a little less like a strip of highlighter, and you want it to be a bit more blended into the skin, this is a great brush for that. My other favorite highlighter brushes are these two brushes, and I mentioned this one before because I said I had been using it for cream bronzer. Now I use it for highlighter, and again, control and placement, and it works the same way, just with highlighter. And you know, because it's small, you can really get into certain places where you want the light to hit, you know, with highlighter. So this is what I use this one for now. The other brush that I love for highlighter, for just the same reason as the Milani one, but I like the shape of this one because it's actually quite like the dome, is the Linda Hallberg, and this is the 306. And this is what I use when I'm just really really concentrating where I want my highlighter. I'm not doing like a, you know, I'm just a little bit on the nose, a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there, maybe a little bit on the chin. This is what I will use. So these are my 3 sort of go-to highlighter brushes. Now let's talk the moment I'm sure you've all been waiting for. Let's talk eyeshadow brushes. Again, if you need to stop and get a snack, please do so. So let's talk about my favorite eyeshadow brushes, and I'm going to give you an overview. I prefer, for the most part, not all the time, and we're going to get into the exceptions, natural hair brushes for eyeshadows. I find that the blending is easier for me overall. I find that the way the product is picked up is easier, or they tend to pick up more product. So for me, it's a little bit less of that whole spending that time trying to build up color. However, not every eyeshadow formula lends itself to natural hair brushes, and we're going to get into that in a moment. So let's first talk about my favorite natural hair brushes that I own. My favorite natural hair brushes are Rephr brushes. I own a ton of them, and I love them. And they're currently having a sale for like 40% off, and I picked up a couple brushes and a couple of other things from them, but they're currently having a sale. And I would say if you have never tried Rephr brushes, now's the time to try them. They're 40% off right now, and the brushes are amazing. So if you've been worried about trying natural hair brushes because you're like, they're expensive, I don't know what to buy, they're 40% off right now, and I'm going to talk to you about the shapes that I think are worth investing in. So first up, let's talk about this brush that I just bought another one of because I loved it so much. And I got this one fairly recently, and it is the Rephr 15. So this is what it looks like. And usually with brushes like this that are this big, I'm not into them because I tend to like something a little bit smaller. But what I love about this one, I've discovered about this one, is that this is my go-to, and it's dirty because I've been using it. This is my go-to all over shadow brush, guys. I told you I've been doing a lot of like one or two and done looks, keeping it very simple with my eye makeup. This is the most complicated eye makeup look I've worn like all week. I've been wearing very simple eye makeup as of late. But this has been my go-to brush for that, because in the mornings when you're trying to get dressed and you don't have time to like do a whole complicated thing, I swirl this in my shadow. I blend. Sometimes it picks up so much product, I don't even have to dip in again. I can just go to the other eye and I get shadow all over. So if you are like me and you have slightly hooded eyes, and a lot of all over brushes are just a bit too big, this one's big, but it's not too big. You know, it gets the job done. And so I really, really like this for that purpose. Now I got that out of the way because it was sitting here and I was like, oh yeah, I want to talk about that. So let's talk about my 2 faves. My favorites are the number 14, beautiful brush. And this is the brush that I tend to use when I'm going into my crease to apply eyeshadow. This is the brush that you often see me using when I'm just filling in my crease, you know, blending into my crease. This is what I'm using. And the blend is impeccable. It just is. I then go in, if I can find it, where the same hell is it? This one is stained, but it's clean. This is the number 13, and this is my favorite Rephr brush, the number 13. I own a million of them, and I keep repurchasing them because I can't. I'm an animal and I can't be stopped, but also because they're amazing to have. This is the perfect brush if you have hooded eyes, guys, or small eyes, and you need something that can get in there and fill out that outer corner and deepen up. This is the one, my friends. This is the one. This is the one. I am obsessed with this brush. My combo, my 1-2 punch is the 14 and the 13. This is like, these are a match made in heaven. These are twinsies. They go everywhere together when I'm doing my makeup. So these are my absolute go-tos. Absolute go-tos. My other absolute go-to is the number 21 from Rephr. This is what I use to apply all of my metallics, my shimmers, my glitter, shadows. This is what I use, guys. It is perfection. Perfection. It picks up so well. I own a ton of these as well. These are kind of like the number 13. I just keep purchasing them. And then other shapes that I really, really love are the number 28, which is stunning, and the number 12. And this is kind of like a chunky pencil brush, and this is really good. I like to use this in a pinch when I've used my number 13 and I want to build up, but I want the product even more concentrated to like a tiny area. This is what I use because it's got that denseness to it. I love it. I love it for that. Another really great brush is the number 2, and this is a really great packing brush. Beautiful packing brush. Love this for packing on shadow. This is perfect for powder eyeshadow. If you're packing on a really pigment, you want, like if you're creating a very dark look and you really want to pack on those dark tones, use this brush. This is the number 2. It's perfect for that. Right, so I have other rougher brushes, but those are the ones that I say are, if you're really trying to start your rougher collection, those are the ones to start off with. I think they're perfect. They have other ones like slanted ones and things like that that I think are nice, but I think if you're just trying to start your like basic rougher collection, those are the ones to go with. Next up, let's talk about my other favorite natural hair brushes, and that would be the Sonia G Sky Eye Set. I have the Pro Eye Set as well. I prefer the Sky Eye Set because of my eye shape, because of my slightly hooded lids, because these, and if you want to know what these look like, it's the ones with the blue handle. These are the ones that taught me that I like natural hair brushes. I splurged on these brushes ages ago, and I was like, I don't know, it's so expensive, oh my god. And I used these with Pat McGrath Divine Rose one, and it was a wrap. It was a wrap. I was like, oh my god. This is the thing about brushes, guys. Brushes can do a lot as far as helping you with technique. Brushes play a huge role in that. Technique is part of it, but brushes, I would say, is the other part of that, as far as getting your eye makeup to look blended and look how you want it to look in your mind's eye. Good brushes, and oftentimes those are natural hair brushes, I'm sorry, it's just a fact, can do so much to get you where you want to go. And I had all these ideas in my head when I first bought my first Pat McGrath Mothership, and I was struggling, not because of the formula, but because I was using like cheaper brushes and I felt like the product just wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. And I bought these, and it was like a whole new world opened up for me, and I was like, oh, okay. I never looked back. You know, I was like, okay, I guess I'm a natural hair brush girl, and I have been for the most part. So this is the Sky Set. This is the mini booster, which is my go-to in this set. And then this is the classical crease, which is the crease brush. And you will see, I'm going to show you. Do I still have it out? Yes, I do. Okay, so this is the rougher 14, and this is the mini. This is the classic crease. Do you see how much different that is? Remember, the Sky Set is for smaller and hooded eyes, but I feel like the number 14 from rougher is actually even better. So I love this set, but I will say I don't think you need this set if you are looking to buy natural hair brushes. If you just want to experience Sonia G brushes because they're worth experiencing, I love them, go for it. But if you're just looking for some really utilitarian style brushes that will get the job done that are natural hair, I would say rougher they're sort of like my worker bee brushes, you know? They're my everyday brushes. Another one that I love from the Sky Set is the flat definer. I use this all the time, like all the time. This shape is like perfection to me. And then finally, the last one is this jumbo blender, which is nice. I like it. But for me, if I'm gonna do that, I tend to reach for the 28 more from rougher, because this one is still, in my opinion, a tad too big, just a little bit. But it does help, and it does blend. So like if you are putting something, packing it into the crease and wanting to blend it out, that it gets the job done. If you're trying to just build up, I would say the number 2 is better. Another rougher brush that I want to mention before I move on that I love is the rougher number 3, which is the like classic like little pencil brush. I love this brush. This is such a workhorse brush for me. And on Koyoto, if you can find it, this one is stained because I just used it not too long ago. This is one of their, similar to the powder one that I showed you guys, it's the same. They had a little 3 set that I purchased, and these are amazing. So if you want to splurge on some small pencil brushes that are natural hair, I recommend the Kyoto set. So now let's talk synthetic brushes, guys. So I talked about how I do feel like there is a place for synthetic brushes in a robust brush collection, because there are certain formulas of eyeshadow that I think are better when used in conjunction with synthetic brushes. One of those being the Anastasia Beverly Hills eyeshadow formula. If you love those palettes and you love that formula, I would say use synthetic brushes, because the powder from those eyeshadows is so soft and lightly packed that a natural hair brush will just rip through it, and it will pick up so much and it'll just on the eye and you will struggle to blend. I also think the same for Melt's formula. I think Melt's formula is very dense and very pigmented, so using a synthetic brush will kind of just naturally help you pull back a bit and you have a little bit more control over your application. So those are 2 formulas that I would say, for me personally, I tend to reach more for. Synthetic brushes also give me glow because they have a very dense, very highly pigmented matte formulation. I tend to reach more for synthetic brushes because it just helps me pull back. For Pat McGrath, I prefer natural hair. For Natasha Denona, I can use both. I really can. Her formula is sort of like right down the middle, where it's not too pigmented, but pigmented, well, I won't say that. Her formulation is very pigmented, but I do think that her formula is a bit more versatile as far as what type of brush you can use. So let me talk about some synthetic brushes that I love. So I talked about the Units brushes and I bought the face set. This is the other set. This is the eye set. And this is a newer one because I have another set that I stained so terribly, and I was like, I want new ones. So I bought new ones when Beautylish had their gift card event. And this is the eye set, and I love these brushes. I love these brushes. They do a fantastic job. I will say I don't use this one as much. So I don't, if you're not looking to buy a set and you just want to buy them individually, which you can, you don't necessarily need this one. I don't reach for it as much. But these 3, I love, 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 love. And as you can see, this is much bigger than the Refer 14. And even the Sonia G one, it's about a little bit longer than that, but it still works. And it really works, again, for those formulations of eyeshadow that you don't want to go too hard with when you first dip into them. This one is my absolute fave. Absolute fave. This is the Unit 309. And by the way, this is the Unit 307. And then this is another one that I just love, these like thicker, denser pencil brushes for like the lower lash line. And this is the 310. I reach for these all the time. All the time. Newer to my collection, and I just used these for the first time, but I did want to mention them because I was really impressed by them. And I think that if you're looking for that sort of like natural hair qualities without natural hair, this is a fantastic option. And that is the Singe Beauty, the brand that was just started by Angelica Nyquist, or just released these brushes. These are stunning, guys. These are stunning. I use this to create this eye look today, and I was really impressed by how they picked up product, how they blended. They perform like natural hair brushes. So I'm mentioning these because if you're not interested in spending the money on natural hair brushes, you do not have to. These types of brushes do exist. This is the set. The set is, for all of these, I think was like $55, which isn't terrible. That's not a bad pricing for this amount. I mean, keep in mind, this is 5 brushes, and then the Sky set from Sonia G, I think it's like 5 brushes, and now that was like 120, 130, maybe more for the set. So just to give you some perspective about price. So $55 might seem like a lot if you're not used to spending money on brushes, but this is actually really good, and especially for synthetic, because I don't actually believe in spending a lot on synthetic brushes. I kind of high-key refuse to do so, but I felt like this was a decent amount for this set, and the quality of them has borne that out to be true. So I definitely recommend trying this brand and this set if you are if you're into colorful looks, but also if you have hooded eyes, and if you're looking for something that is comparable to natural hair without them being natural hair. This is a really great option. All right, guys, my battery is about to die because I've been sitting here for so long. I hope that this was helpful. I feel like I was a little bit all over the place. I tried to categorize and sort of go down the line, and I hope that I did that for you. I didn't show all of my brushes. I really just showed the ones that I think are worth showing to you guys and that I think are worth sharing my techniques and kind of giving you a broad overview of how I use my brushes, why I use certain brushes, and what brushes I recommend. If you enjoyed today's video, guys, please be sure to hit the like button, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye now.